All right, let's talk some football. Time now for our 7 in 7 segment, talking about the biggest topics in the NFL. What was a big week in the NFL, and nobody has the answers like my man, former Patriot Jermaine Wiggins here with us. Wiggy, hard to say what was the biggest story in the NFL this week, but let's start with the one, I guess, the two that are related. Starting with Peyton Manning signs with the Broncos. Question number one. How do you think Peyton works out in Denver?
Well, you know what? I think it's a good fit for Peyton Manning. I would have liked to seen him go to San Francisco, but when you're looking at the Denver Broncos, they have a stability in the coaching staff, stability in ownership, and John Elway. And Peyton Manning brings to that team a team that instant credibility. When you look at them now, say offensively, they're going to be able to compete. But what I think it's going to do for them defensively, they're going to be playing ahead of games now with the lead. So you're going to be able to see them do some exotic things on defense. And if you look at that defensive personnel, they have some players. Elvis Dumervil, Von Miller, Champ Bailey's a guy that still can play. So they're a team that you got to look out for, especially playing in that AFC West.
And John Fox is a defensive guy. All right, so now with a Hall of Fame QB as your starter, that leaves the most popular player in Denver, maybe in the league last year, back on the bench, or in this case, out the door. Traded to not the Patriots, as some suspected, but the Jets. Question number two, is this a good fit for Tebow, and does he unseat Mark Sanchez?
Well, you know what? I think this is lose-lose for Tim Tebow and the Jets organization. You know, the Jets were already a circus, and now you go ahead and add another dancing bear to that circus. When you look at the Jets, you got to look at Mark Sanchez. Here's a guy that was already mentally, he was unstable. Now you bring a guy in like Tim Tebow to put behind him. You're not saying, hey, he's a situational player. You're saying he's our backup quarterback, and you know the kind of following Tim Tebow has. And now you got to look at Sanchez is going to have some bad games, and they're going to be calling for Tebow's name. But I got to give Tebow some bit of advice. It's going to be quick. They'll pull him out because it's going to take time. When you get those fans over there and they look at it and say, get him out of there when he's not playing well.
Tuck and run, and Tebow does that well. All right, when the new league year began, the Patriots had under contract at wide receiver Julian Edelman, if you can call him a receiver, Ocho Cinco, 15 catches, and Tiquan Underwood, who was cut the night before the Super Bowl, later re-signed. All right, so then they go out and add Anthony Gonzalez, Dante Stallworth. They franchise Welker. They also add Brandon Lloyd and re-sign Deion Branch. So question number three, do you like the competition there at wide receiver?
Well, I think there's a lot of competition there. When I look at this, how it's going to unfold, how it's going to shake up, the only thing I can tell you is I know that Wes Welker's going to be around, and I know that Brandon Lloyd's going to be around. After that, you know what? It's a roll of the dice on that. You look at what they've done on that wide receiver thing. I think they did what they needed to do and add a viable option outside the numbers in Brandon Lloyd. These other guys are going to be backups. You get a guy like Anthony Gonzalez who hasn't played in 3 years. He's a couple of snaps. But you got to look at the two guys that you have, Wes Welker with Brandon Lloyd, add them with those tight ends. I think offensively they're going to be good.
All right, so wait. So if that's how it ends up with the group, who do you think of the final three there then?
You know what?
I'm looking out for Anthony Gonzalez.
Yeah, you know what? I'd have to say that Ocho Cinco is in a position where he could be one of those guys. He could be in a position, Dante Stallworth, but Dante Stallworth's another guy that played under Josh McDaniels, knows the system. He could be the guy that bumps Ocho out of that.
Could be. All right, rapid fire here on the final couple here. Ocho restructured his contract. Brady restructured his contract. We talked about Wes Welker, and the Patriots have said that re-signing him to a long-term deal is a priority. Are those restructuring maneuvers in an effort to re-sign Wes?
Yeah, I think it could be. It definitely could be, or it could be an effort to maybe get Gronkowski and Hernandez, those two guys, wrapped up for the future. So we don't know what they're going to do. Hopefully they spend it, and hopefully they do get Welker re-signed to a 3-year deal. I think this guy's got plenty of gas left in the tank.
All right, the offensive line, for the first time in maybe a decade, is a question mark here for the Patriots. Matt Light maybe retiring. Logan Mankins, we find out he played on a torn ACL. Dan Copen's still unsigned. Brian Waters unsigned. A lot of kind of moving parts here. Are you concerned about this offensive line heading into the season?
Yeah, definitely. There's uncertainty when you look at this offensive line moving forward. Like you said, Mankins, we don't know when he's going to be back. Matt Light retires. Now that means Nate Solder's going to have to go in there and play on a consistent basis. We know that Sebastian Fomer, he's had some back issues, and so injuries are things that have plagued him. And now you bring in guys like a Robert Gallery. There's not a lot of consistency there, and I think that's the important part when you look at this offensive line. You need consistency and stability, especially when you get number 12 in the pocket.
Absolutely. That's the point there with number 12 in the pocket. And so free agency giveth and free agency also taketh away. Pats make a few moves, but could not do or enough, or maybe didn't want to do enough to re-sign Ben-Jarvis Green-Ellis. He goes to the Bengals for 3 years and about $9 million. That seems like a pretty cap-friendly type of deal. Question number 6, are you surprised that the Patriots didn't want Benny back?
Yeah, I was, because here's a guy that's touched the ball over 500 times and hasn't put it on the ground once. Ball security is the number one thing in the NFL. And when you have a guy like Ben-Jarvis who does not put the football on the ground and inside the 5-yard line, he's your leading touchdown maker on the ground. I don't understand why they wouldn't wrap him up, especially to a deal like that. He's worth it. He's proven it. Now you go into a season pretty much with two unproven guys in Ridley and Vereen that we don't know what they can do. We know that Ridley's got a little bit of a fumble problem.
Sure.
So now that's your offensive backfield and Danny Woodhead.
Right, and so Benny, the most productive back they've had the last couple of years. Surprising. Maybe this was the biggest story in the league this week. Penalties for the Saints and Bounty Gate. We asked you about this a couple weeks ago when it first came out. Sean Payton out for a year. GM Mickey Loomis, 8 games.
Yeah.
Question number 7, final question. Penalties too stiff or just right?
No, I think they were too stiff. I think, the punishment, a year for Sean Payton, I think that's something that he didn't deserve. I mean, I could see them maybe getting 8 games for that, but for a year, and then Greg Williams indefinitely. Yeah. Now he has to wait after a year. I think those were punishments that, when you look at it, were way too harsh. But, it is Roger Goodell, and he has a big hammer. When he swings it hard.
Especially when it comes to player safety.
Exactly.
We've seen that time and time again. Jermaine Wiggins, thanks so much for the insight. We do appreciate it. Time for us to move on. And when we come back here on Acura Sports Extra, we're going to talk about the Final Four. All 4 teams are set. We'll bring you the final 2 that punch their tickets to New Orleans. Stick around.